So we're holding true to our nature here in the Commerce Committee, the House Commerce Committee, that is. We have an action-packed day today. One of my favorite presenters is here with us, and we'll get to him here in a minute. First, are there any bill introductions? All right, seeing none, I have two bill introductions. The first one is the unemployment bill that we talked about last year. We had a hearing on it, and we had a lot of changes to it. So we're going to just introduce a new bill, and we will have a joint hearing with the Senate next Wednesday at noon, hopefully in this room, to review the bill. Not a hearing on the bill, but just to kind of review it, and then we'll have individual hearings in the House and the Senate. That RS number is RS 2387. And seeing no objections, we will accept the bill. Secondly, we have with us, most of you met him on the House floor today, Senator Mark Daly, the 24th chair of the Senate of Ireland, is with us today. You can stand up and say hi. So, all right. He had one too many Irish coffees this morning, so we're not going to allow him to talk. But welcome, Senator Daly. And if you remember, he sent us an Irish flag last year for the 100th anniversary of the, what was it? I told you I'd get you to talk. Right. That flag is flying on our South Lawn today. And so we're proud to have that with us. And the flag that's flying above it, the Kansas flag, is that's going to belong to Senator Daly at the end of the day. I am introducing the bill RS 2628, which is a bill that will form a committee to increase trade between Ireland and the state of Kansas. Seeing no, it's a commission. I'm sorry, not a committee, but seeing no objections, we will enter that bill, and hopefully we'll have it ready for you, sir, by St. Patrick's Day. All right, moving on. We have a presentation on Build Up Kansas from none other than Mike Gibson. Turn on the mic, please. You started talking before you even got up.
I know it. Sorry. It's a bad habit of mine. Mr. Chairman, committee, it's great to be before you again. What a great opportunity. I'm going to take credit for the warmer weather, too. You have in front of you some table of contents of which some of the things I'm going to be going through. But second, I want to thank you. I can't thank you enough for the decision that you made to partner with one of the largest industries in the state of Kansas, which is paying huge dividends. Those dividends are, one, changing the mindset of our educators that have been told for 40 years that everybody needs to go to college. And obviously, over the last 15 years, people have recognized that there needs to be some options for our younger generation, that there needs to be CTE vocational programming as that option. And we've got some great programming to share with you today on that very front. But we're also, what you've done is you're giving the younger generation in Kansas hope. A lot of the focus groups we've had with our kids across the state of Kansas, many in rural Kansas, have been losing hope. They feel like when they get out of high school that their only option is to move to Houston, Dallas, Denver, or someplace in between. By what you've done, we're giving life skills in high school through vocational programming, CTE vocational programming. That life skill comes with credentialing, industry recognized credentialing for a good paying job. In addition, we're energizing a pipeline of skilled workers. You've done masterful jobs in attracting Panasonic, and now with Integra and Scorpion and some others. You heard loud and clear from Panasonic and those folks. Can you build and maintain the facility? I will suggest to you with what you've done in this partnership, you will be able to answer that question for a year to come, that yes, in fact, Kansas can build and maintain their facilities. And there's a lot of other companies in California and Illinois and New York. They're looking for greener pastures. And I think Kansas is that home base, and we can answer those questions regarding workforce. But in addition, your constituents are constantly hoping that their kids don't move out of state, because if they move out of state, they meet their future spouse and then they move or go visit their kids wherever they're living. We're going to give these kids that life skill. We're going to give those kids a reason to stay close to home, and they're going to meet their spouse in Kansas. They're going to start a family here, and we're going to reverse that out migration issue. We're going to grow population, which means tax base for you to put back into vital quality of life that we all enjoy here in Kansas. I want to share with you a couple examples before I get into some statistics of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 12 months with your help. But one is right here in Topeka. We have Seaman, we have Topeka High, and Washburn Rural just passed a large bond issue not too long ago. And part of that bond issue was to build about a $25 million CTE wing, of which they quickly adopted our craft training curriculum, NCCR, into it and put their instructors in the trainer. But that system is starting to pay big dividends. Those kids are flowing into Washburn Technology. I asked for a account because I was asked to be their keynote speaker the last two graduation classes. They had 250 students in electrical technician alone that's graduated in the last year and a half. All but 3 got placed in the industry or applying for jobs at Panasonic. There's a real life example of what we're doing to populate the pipeline of younger folks to then take their next step in our community colleges and our VOTEC colleges, which will reverse that trend of which I know my good friend Randy or Blake Flanders reported last year that we were down about 28% in community colleges. I will suggest to you what we're doing is going to help reverse that trend also. But that instructor was so excited. He said, what we have been able to do in helping them get to that point is providing instantaneous results. I also have another example, Kinsley, Kansas. The Kinsley Schools District instructor sent me an email after a workshop that we put together. He said, for years I've been teaching some obsolete training, carpentry, birdhouse building, things of that nature. And NCCR curriculum has given me the direction, given me the current and future tools to help my kids get the credentials to be eligible to be hired. And so we're real proud to hear about that instantaneous feedback from those instructors across the state. I will also share with you, and I shared with this with the Senate Commerce Committee this morning. We've had 2 workshops, one, and you'll see a couple videos on some folks at those videos or those workshops on April 5th and then again on November 8th. The instructors in the exit surveys said they could not thank the legislators enough for what you have done to provide resources and recognize the importance of CTE vocational programming. They wanted me to personally say thank you, in the fact that they felt like that they have kind of been an afterthought. And they are giving you, the legislators, the full line credit for what you have done in recognizing the value of partnering with one of the largest industries in the state to energize a pipeline of skilled workers. So I think that is important to understand. We are creating that pool of next generation of workers. We are also increasing the enrollment at the community colleges and the 4-year. We've seen a spike at Kansas State Construction Science and Pittsburgh State Construction Science programs. In fact, for the last 3 years, the only department that's growing at Kansas State is the Construction Science Engineering Department. And a lot of that is through the advertisement that we're doing through Build Up Kansas and using social media to advertise those programs to where those kids had no idea what was going on at those respective schools, including Fort Hays State, by the way, which has launched a really good construction program. In fact, our board of directors had its meeting last fall there. So I want to get into some statistics here and to give you a flavor for what's going on. So if I could get my my professional IT guy to go to the first slide, but go on to the second slide, and then I'll prompt you on that. And while he's doing that, we just don't talk about things, we actually produce. And I'd like to pass around the curriculum that is being used in 103 schools that are now partners with us. This is the core curriculum that I have in bookmark, where you can see the outlines. Also, I'd like to see some of the components that are being taught: safety, blueprint reading, hand tool power tools. And then the schools are taking on carpentry, HVAC, welding, concrete, and others. But the core is the first start. You see up on the screen, we have signed up 103 schools, high schools, and then we have another 15 or 16 community colleges around the state. A total of 80 instructors that have been certified, 40, almost 5,000 textbooks, which equate to over 6,000 students that have been enrolled in CTE vocational programming in the trades, and nearly 25,000 credentials. And those credentials are going to be used for hiring purposes. Next slide, please. Here's a heat map. I know one of the things that y'all have told us at the very beginning of this partnership was, are we going to focus on all the state, especially rural Kansas? You'll notice the lion's share of our partners are in rural Kansas. In fact, in your handout, I have provided to you a breakout by school district. And we went one step farther. We put, I know you know what schools you represent, but we put the school district or the Senate and the House districts along each of the school districts that have signed up. I also bring to your attention on the last page the community colleges that are using our curriculum. And the reason why I point that out to you is some of our smaller schools don't have the resources for practical labs. And I think y'all know this. They sign articulation agreements with the community colleges to use some of their practical labs in a sharing. And we encourage that because it helps move the ball along. There are a few schools, community colleges that aren't listed here that we're not giving up on them, but we're having a little trouble getting into those schools for whatever reason. We're not going to give up on them because we need their help in building this infrastructure of high schools to feed into the community college. But that gives you a little snapshot of what's going on. Let's go to the next slide real quick. Obviously, one thing that we have discovered, we're becoming the primary resource for training and retraining up and coming CTE vocational instructors. Just like in any industry right now, we're losing a lot of experience. We know a lot of our CTE vocational instructors are going to be retiring in the next few years. We're actually using our HR platform, and we've made it available to every school superintendent across the state, 298 school superintendents, to post their job openings, to where we're connecting some recent retired construction trades folks that want to make some extra money to go to work if they live close to Chaparral or Chanute or Goodland, that they could actually go and teach what they learned in their career in the construction. So we're connecting the schools with our industry through our HR platform. Next slide, please. My staff has done a tremendous job. I think I mentioned to you, we have a retired school superintendent out of Riley County. We just recently, in June, he retired from USD 259, the Wichita School District. He was head of their entire CTE program. He is now on board. Now I have him that can speak CTE instructor language. I have a school superintendent that can talk superintendent principal language. And then I have 4 HR industry folks. But we're making tremendous headway. But one of the things they suggested is, and I said this, and bear with me, my analogy is if we have somebody like Representative Clayton goes to Best Buy and buys a laptop, and the salesman says, Mr. Clayton, it's easy. Just don't take it home, unbox it, plug it in, and it's ready to go. But if you have any problems, call a 1-800 number. You go home, unbox it, plug it in, you're going, this isn't working. And you call your 1-800 number and you get bounced around. And you're probably talking to somebody in India or someplace else. I wish they were talking to Ireland because they've got good golf courses over there. But the fact being is you get frustrated and you throw your hands up. The same thing with what we're doing. We have put these instructors through a train-the-trainer process, but we are not going to just send them back to the schools. So our staff put together a workshop in April 5th, and again, November 8th, and almost 130 in April, and 160 of CTE instructors from both high schools and community college came in for a one-day workshop. We gave them a $250 stipend, not for them to spend on individual. It went to the school. They could spend it in their classroom as an incentive, but we helped them get the hands-on training to where they could put a name with a face. We also have done 200 plus visits to the schools as follow-up, but we're not going to be a 1-800 number. We're going to be a customer service face-to-face, because if you are looking for sustainability, which I know you are, in order to support economic development, it can't be start or stop. It's got to be sustainable. And these instructors are loving every minute of it. That's why they said for me to tell you thank you, because they're seeing support like they've never seen before. Next slide. This is one of the vice presidents of NCCR that came in from our national office in Florida, who works with 4,000 other education entities that are using NCCR across the country. He and our other partners said this is unprecedented. Nothing of this, Build Up Kansas is nothing they have ever seen. So let's go over to the next slide where we have a couple videos. If you'd hit the play button. This was video from the first. Hopefully we have sound. When we don't have sound, we had the same challenge. I was hoping you'd hear this.
Through the computer. Redo it.
Those two videos we're going to be able to depict. One of your colleagues, Todd Masters, came to be a keynote speaker along with Blake Flanders. And then you would hear some testimonials from some educators and industry. It was amazing. Blake Flanders said, I've heard about Build Up Kansas. You've told me for a year what's going on, but he got to see several of his instructors. It's hard for me to depict what's on both of those videos. Could you go to the second one? Maybe that might work better on the next slide. Because this is where NCCR says they've never seen anything like this in Kansas.
Committee, we'll get you a link to the video so you can watch them at your leisure.
Okay. Let's go on to the next slide. We're really proud about that. But obviously the interest is there. ESDEC and the Kansas Career and Technical Ed group has said just in the last 6 months, they have seen a groundswell of interest in CTE vocational programming. And the head of ESDEC told them it's because of what Build Up Kansas is doing in a partnership between the legislature, education, and industry. Let's go to the next slide, please. I just want to bring to your attention, we not only use social media to target 17 to 20-year-olds or 22-year-olds, but we also target the parents. I'll give you one example out in Garden City. A parent whose son did not know what he was going to do had a friend down the street whose son was enrolled at the local CTE vocational program at the high school, and they got to talking. And the parent said that my friend told me it would be worth your while to take your son down there to understand what Dodge City High School is doing. And all of a sudden, his son got into that and feels like he's going to have he's pursuing plumbing. And so the parents are starting to see the social media posting and the value of construction opportunities. So this is far reaching. Let's go to the next slide. I want to also remind you, we do everything both in Spanish and English just by hitting a button. If you go to the landing page or anything that we do, it's convertible to Spanish to make sure we're covering both sides. Next slide, please. We have current data in terms of the wage scales. I just want to bring to your attention, we are not minimum wage. In fact, I said to the Senate Commerce Committee, We're having some dialogue with the Department of Labor and the Department of Education. They have some definitions of high wage and high demand jobs. We think that it's some archaic ways of determining those things because a lot of our jobs are way above what they determine as high wage. And we think that that needs to be revisited. And there'll probably be some more information I want to send to you guys later on. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is the HR platform that comes along with this. The construction industry is posting their jobs by craft and by city across the state of Kansas. Kids and people that are displaced in other industries can download their resume and send their resume directly to the HR director who posted that job for an interview. Next slide, please. In about a 4-month period of time, we had 53,000 people hit that HR platform. My goal in the next couple of years is that this platform will be the largest HR platform in the country, or at least in the Midwest. The value of this is Arcuro is our partner, and Arcuro ties into 10 of the largest other job boards like Glassdoor, Indeed, and others. So once our contractor posts to that, it automatically populates to the other 10 job boards nationwide, and we're getting tremendous traction, as you can see with some of the analytics that are coming out of this. Next slide, please. The one thing that we reported to you last year is we want your constituents to know what you're doing. You can see snippets every time we have a school sign up. We send out a social media press release and we geofence these schools. I know just enough to be dangerous on geofencing, but anybody that steps inside that school while we're geofencing, which is a mile radius around that school, gets a pop-up on their phone. But they're getting pop-ups on announcements that USD 383 Manhattan High School just signed an MOU to use NCCR curriculum with Build Up Kansas. And we also put your Facebook information, both the senator and the House member, in that location. I've had more parents say, I didn't realize my senator or my House member had anything to do with this. We want you. You are the reason that I'm standing up here. And we want to make sure you get the credit. Next slide, please. Next slide. All I can say in this particular case is we want to thank you. This is something that, again, I'll give you one quick snippet. In November, I was asked to go, AGC of America, which is our national organization in Washington, D.C., hosted the largest HR workforce summit in Atlanta, Georgia. I was asked to do a presentation on Build Up Kansas. One of the world's largest contractor personnel was there. It used to be HB Zachary, but it's Zachary Construction. They came up to me. They said, I can't believe what y'all are doing in Kansas. We're going back to every one of our regional offices and tell them to reach out to AGC and see how we can replicate that in the respective states that we're at, that y'all are hitting a major home run. In addition, we continue to hear from different groups out there that they have never seen something like this, where legislators, educators, and industry are working together to solve a major issue, obviously workforce. But bottom line, we're giving these kids hope. And if we can't give these kids hope, they will choose to move out of the state. And that would be a tragedy, because this is a great quality of life state to live in. The other thing I want to bring to your attention, it's on the last page, or last page of your handout. It's a memorandum of understanding. This is not a contract. It's an outline of understanding of what the school's responsibilities are as they enter in to take advantage of the monies for the textbooks, the online testing for the students' credentialing, and the train-the-trainer for their instructors. But it also tells them what we expect from them. The first thing I get from the superintendent is, am I signing a contract? No. In fact, the Olathe school system actually got their attorneys to add some things to it to cover their bases. But it outlines expectations, which is critical if we're going to have sustainability in what we're doing here. So the numbers continue to go. You asked me last year, what are the challenges? The challenges are we still have a mindset, and that's been instilled for 40 years, that everybody must go to college. And we're learning more and more the high cost and people just looking to get credentials to where they can go to work immediately and make money to support their families are more and more the norm. And if we can continue on this route, I will promise you, Kansas will continue to lead in terms of having skilled workforce to address those companies that are looking for another place to move. And I know that the high taxes in California, Illinois, and New York, those people are looking all over the place to move. And Kansas should be that place that they move, and we can answer that question. So, Mr. Chairman, I cannot tell you how exciting this journey has been. I can't tell you how lucky I am to have fallen into hiring some of the best professionals in their particular area of expertise. Senator Diedrich knows firsthand, along with a couple others, know Brad Starnes, the school superintendent who retired last year out of Riley County. These people have a way of knowing how to talk to educators. Not that I don't, or some of my other staff don't, but it's getting attention in a big time way, and it's moving the needle in a big time way. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your leadership, and especially your vision to understand that maybe having some industries help in this endeavor can help the Department of Education, can help the Board of Regents reverse some of the trends that we've been seeing in recent times. So I'm open for questions, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry we couldn't get the videos, but we'll send them to you.
Well, I'm not in the video, so it doesn't really, I don't care. We will get the links to it. I have seen the videos, and actually I was going to comment that I love success, and I love that when we make the right decision up here, and every once in a while we stumble on the right decision, and this was one of them. And the day that you texted me and sent me the video links to the videos, I was having a rather bad day that day, and when I saw your name and I saw the video, I immediately started feeling better, and it could because you were like, look at the success we're having. And then I watched the videos, and it was pretty incredible. Changed my whole day. So I appreciate that. And I love updates. And so the more you can get updates out to all of us, the better. Any questions or concerns or comments from the committee? Representative Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So great to see you. We're actually AGC members now, so
I saw that.
It's great to be part with you guys. The two questions I have, I love everything that we're doing. My question is Kansas a pilot state, or are surrounding states around us doing the same funding as what we're doing?
We are a pilot. In fact, I have at least 20 states that are coming in to see what we're doing, and they're sharing it back with their respective legislative bodies. Like I said, the word has gotten out, and it's amazing with social media. You don't know where that goes. And we do a lot of social media posting through this funding because that's how the younger generation gets their information, but other people get their information too. So we're the number one best practices on how to leverage both public, and this is a tremendous public-private partnership, I will share with you too. 6 or 7 years ago, when we went to speak to Senator Susan Wagle in her office, she turned to our contractors and said, "You are the first group that has," and I've been in politics for a long time, "You're the first group that ever came into my office and said, not ask for money to start something. You asked for a partner, because we have spent millions of dollars leading up to this from the private sector just to get us to this point. But visionaries like you said, what if we could help you get to the next level?" I couldn't have gone out and hired the kind of professionals I have working for me without your help. I could not have. We're now becoming one of the number one customers for NCCR, and they're in almost 4,000 education entities around the country because of what we're doing. And so, yes, we are the number one best practices, and a lot of people are paying attention to what's going on in terms of the results, because we're not talking about it, we're doing something.
I love that. And my second question is, we're having a lot of general contractors that are requiring additional safety requirements and certifications. So are these students leaving high school, or if they're doing a college program with their OSHA 30 and all their certificates, or?
They are getting their OSHA 10 hour. The OSHA 30 is a train the trainer, but the OSHA 10 hour, that's why I passed out not just the core. And the core is the beginning. That's the outline, like blueprint reading, hand tool, power tools, communication on the job site. Oh, by the way, and I had this conversation with Representative Williams because she asked me to come in about 3 years ago on this situation. I'm a big 80-20 rule. 80% technical, 20% soft skills. If you look at those outlines, it almost follows an 80-20 rule. Because if an employer is looking, you can get the most articulate person to come in and wow you. But if you look at their resume and they don't have the technical skills, that conversation comes to an end. And so we are big. The NCCR was built on a heavy emphasis on technical skills, but understanding there need to be some soft skills that go along with it. And that's why I wanted you to physically see that. But I also wanted you to see one of the components being safety as one of those key components, because that is paramount in anything that we do in our industry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Christy Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so 103 school districts, you still have 100 plus to go.
Yes.
What are some of the holdbacks for some of those school districts? And also to note, as we were looking through your textbook, we were kind of excited looking through the math pages. We were thinking that every math class, basic math class, should probably have those. I think one of the things we're seeing in our education system is kids are quickly jumping into algebra, trigonometry, geometry, and then they're missing the continuation of basic math skills, which happens to be one of the number one complaints I hear from trade positions, the plumbers, the electricians, is that they don't have enough high school graduates that want to work for them that know how to use a ruler. But I noted in your book that you teach them that, so that's great. So thoughts about how to incorporate that into regular math especially in high school when they forget everything they learned in elementary, and 2, what's holding back those 100 plus districts that have not yet responded to your offer?
Well, let me give you a couple first editorials regarding 2 champions that are also having some challenges within. First of all, the Kansas Board of Regents has incorporated NCCR into their policies. They actually say the community colleges shall use it. There's a couple community colleges that are struggling to adhere to that, but that's another story for another day. And we're working with them to try to change that.
And provide the committee a list. If you provide a committee a list of those, we can help you with that, sir.
Thank you. That's embedded in your list on the last page of those schools. Those are the schools that are partnering with us. The second one being the Department of Education. We've had 3 meetings with Randy Watson and his team. There are some Randy's on board. They have it in their policies. But what I said to them was, the school districts are looking for direction on CTE vocational programming. Who would give them direction? We can be there to help them as an industry, but who would they turn to? They turn to the Department of Education, right? But the Department of Ed is saying, well, it's local control and it's all this other stuff. I think somewhere along the line, we need to have dialogue to where the Department of Ed is not telling them what to do, but giving them the insight of what different industries are looking for. And I think we could bridge that gap. To go deeper, Representative Williams, in terms of our challenges, 1, a mindset. There are some school districts that are set in their ways, and we have no animosity. They've been teaching certain things that the instructors don't want to change. Their superintendent has said, we're signing the MOU. They've put their instructor in our train the trainer, but the next step of actually implementation is a little slow. The mindset, some of the school districts are struggling finding those instructors. That's why we're helping them post their job openings on this HR platform. They're being viewed by construction industry professionals. A lot of them, like I said, may be retiring here shortly and would love to have the opportunity to give something back to their local schools. And then the third, just being time. these small school districts, and I'm so proud about, if you looked at that heat map, the lion's share of it's in rural Kansas. We're taking care of the needs over in the big areas like Olathe and the Johnson Wyandotte County and in Wichita, in Topeka, but those rural areas are embracing this stronger, in my opinion, than the urban areas. But those superintendents, those principals, and those instructors are wearing 30 or 40 hats. They've told us they're getting to us, and I'm confident that we're going to have improved numbers even stronger than what you see in front of us. But all that, we didn't get into this challenge overnight. This was a 40+ year endeavor. I'm being nice on that. But 40 years to try to reverse in just 1 or 2 years, I would just tell you, based on the feedback, and that's why we'll send you the links on those 2 videos, the excitement. Senator Ty Masterson and Blake Flanders went around talking to those community college and high school instructors, and they said, Mike, I cannot believe how jacked up these instructors are and how committed they are for their students. By the way, we have another one coming up, and I know it's during the session, March 5th. We're also planning one in October. We're going to personally invite the entire committee in both the Senate and the House Commerce to come to a luncheon, to be part, to see these 160 to 70, and hopefully it's going to be 200+ instructors. So you can ask them. Don't take my word for it. I want you to ask them the questions. But those 3 or 4 things are the things that have kept us to get to 150 or 200 schools. And I'm confident, based on, they've told us, you give us an outline, you give us a turnkey process, our instructors can get trained, and you're going to give us firsthand customer service, that we're going to get there. My goal, I told you a year ago, was 298. I didn't tell you when we were going to get there, but I told you we were going to make progress. I would hope that you would see that this is major progress, despite 40 years of lag time to get to this point. But the thing they're seeing, and why I'm convinced this will move even faster, is because now they know they have a friend in the legislature. Now, I don't want to get into the politics between education and the legislature, but this is really connected with those CTE vocational instructors, the principals, and the superintendents. Like I said, most of them have said they have never seen a big industry step up with the support of the legislation. Never. And that's a compliment to every one of you in this room. So we don't take no for an answer, and we're gonna get there. I can promise you that. And I said this, and the chairman said that was a pretty bold statement last year. You have a partner. We cannot fail. We are not going to fail. And I back it up by saying we can't fail because if we don't have workforce, you're going to have a lot of construction firms going out of business. We are so incentivized to make sure that this is the most successful it can be, because it's going to energize a pipeline, not just for open shop, but for the unions. The unions were a little reluctant and had some concerns about it. And I did a presentation before them. I said, our job is to energize a pipeline of people, of young people. And they said, well, how are you going to make a determination where they go union or open shop? I said, that's not our decision. That's up to the individual to make that decision. But right now, 0 from 0 is 0, is it not, in terms of people interested in getting in the trades? And we are now turning that page at a rapid pace, and that pipeline will be energized to where there'll be enough for everybody. By the way, I've had other industries approach us about how they could participate, and we're having discussions with them because the more the merrier. Because if we can solve construction, and that young woman or man, by the way, about 25%, I think it's about 23% of the enrollees in CTE vocational programming are female. It is exciting to see, and we have to have that, because guess what? What is it, 53 or 54% of the workforce is female? So if we're not working to recruit the female population, we're missing the boat. So, other questions?
Representative Clayton and then Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today. So one of the things that you mentioned was that some of the roadblocks tend to be the Kansas City area when it comes to this. And so as a legislator who represents part of the Kansas City area, I'd like to hear a little bit more from you on that.
Well, I'm not going to say it's a roadblock. it goes back to Representative Williams' question. There's some systems in place that have been in place for a long time. The superintendents are on board. For example, Barbara Gonzalez out of Olathe is working very hard. She enrolled a good portion of her instructors in the train the trainer process, but then taking the next step of implementation of the curriculum is a little slower than we were expecting, but it's a bigger school. Those school systems are a lot bigger over there. So the wheels may not move as fast as we would like. We believe we're making progress, but the first step, as I showed you, is an MOU that starts the wheel where we can start spending money for the textbooks and things of the nature. And some of that's coming a little slower than we were expecting. We are working diligently. In fact, PJ Riley, my CTE vocational instructor that headed up USD 259, is almost camped out on the eastern part of the state, working with the schools to show them. We can't just talk about it. We got to show them the value, the credentialing. It also, we have to have our community colleges involved in this. For example, I've got some school districts on the eastern side saying if this community college isn't going to use it, then I'll go to Washburn Tech or I'll go to Fort Scott and push my kids there. Because the beauty about this curriculum is it gives you a credential. They finish high school, they can pick up at the community college where they left off the high school, and they don't lose any credits. And oh, by the way, most of the community colleges have those articulation limits where they're getting college credit in these VOTEC programs that they're taking. So I don't have a silver bullet to share with you, but I will tell you I'm encouraged with the movement we're making, but some other parts of the state are moving faster.
And just a quick follow-up, please, if I may. So one thing that you also mentioned was an issue regarding whether these individuals went on to trades, whether it was union-based or not union-based. And one thing that I do want to say is that we see this, especially in some suburban areas, there tends to be sort of a prejudice against their children going into learning a trade as opposed to more of a classical education. But I will say this, is that I would proudly have either of my children go into a trade, but as the granddaughter of a union electrician, I would never want them to go into a trade without adequate worker protections. So I sincerely hope that you are working with unions to make sure that as we are educating these students, that they are going forward into jobs where their employers actually look after them and where they have a genuine future, instead of simply turning out workers with technical skills and no future, no protection. So I really want to see that type of work together on that. And I thank you for being here.
I am so glad you asked that question, because there is misinformation out there, and I've heard from some of your colleagues. Sometimes organizations get labeled for things that they're not. We represent both union and open shop contractors, both general contractor subs across the state of Kansas. We were fortunate to have Governor Kelly as our keynote speaker to install our officers. In fact, most of you got invitations at November event in Wichita, and she had something last second that came up, and Lieutenant Governor came to address our group. We had all the major union business agents at that event, along with open shop contractors. I will suggest to you that if you were to ask Panasonic right now, if their approach to building that facility, it is approached with two prime contractors, one an open shop contractor, WG Yates out of Mississippi, and one in Turner Construction, which is more of a union contractor. There needs to be balance in anything that's delivered. And one of the things I wanted to pass out is there's a heavy emphasis, and the statistics will back it up, of heavy safety training. And that safety training is as heavy on the open shop side as it is on the union side. Nobody has a monopoly on that side of things, because at the end of the day, if a contractor does not do their due diligence and safety, they're going to have accidents, or worse yet, fatalities, and their insurance agents aren't going to rewrite their insurance, and they're out of business. So there's built-in incentives to cover that. But I thank you for asking those questions, because we are a very diverse organization on both sides. And ask any business agent, they'll tell you that.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, thanks for being here. So as we move into Western Kansas, the smaller schools, and there's some of them that have have joined. Oops. Are your instructors, do they have to be full-time teachers at the schools, or can they be, you mentioned retirees, but could the school contract with a contractor there in that area that and they kind of do it on the side?
Yes, sir. We have visited with Randy Watson and his team about that very thing. There are provisions to allow for non education degreed individuals to come in to do that type of instruction. That's why we put out word every month to the superintendents to give us their needs. If they need an instructor, tell us what you're looking for. We'll post that, and we're having some successes in that. But yes, they can come in on, and I don't know if the description is a part-time or contract. That's up to the school district and the Department of Ed of how, but they have made accommodations to be able to address that because they know without it, you can't have academia teaching technical skills. You just can't. Those people will walk in, and if I'm an academia reading out of a book and I'm trying to teach welding or carpentry, that student or that employee is going to recognize that real quick and is not going to pay attention. And in fact, they're not going to pay attention. They're going to drop out of the class. So yes, that is already in place. And that was the first question I had. If I am able to get some of these retirees, and we've already identified a group that are interested. Are there any stumbling blocks? Do they have to go back to school and get a master's degree in order to come in and teach a welding class or a plumbing class or whatever? And the Department of Ed has made accommodations to be able to address that.
Well, but even if they're not I guess, retiree, I'm just talking about a local contractor that's, been building houses for several years or been doing carpentry work in an area for several years, and they want to be able to teach it. Do they have to have some sort of degree with you, or they just have to go through your training?
Well, they have to teach the NCCR. They have to go through our train the trainer. In fact, we have several instructors that came from industry. One of them is over at Wichita East, who came from industry, but he went through the train the trainer because the bottom line, it's not just to get acclimated to the NCCR materials. In order to give the students the credentialing, you have to go through the train. There's a standardized training process that goes along. By the way, those credentials are registered in a national registry out of NCCR's offices in Florida, to where that candidate, if they start in Garden City and decide to go to Pittsburgh, those credentials are transferable, and the contractors are recognizing that.
Okay. Yeah. So they don't have to have a degree themselves.
No, they have to have
They
some
just have to
industry
go through your
experience.
training before they can.
There's some minimum criteria to qualify to go through the train the trainer.
So as we look to the west, I mean, I have several schools that in my district that are, but I have some that aren't. But as you go to the west, is that the biggest issue, in that they just don't have someone to teach the class, or is it just not having the time to have the class?
I think it's more the finding the instructor and a little bit of the time. We've got their attention. I've had more superintendents apologize saying, please let the legislature know I'm working diligently to take advantage of this because it's important to my community. This is the only option we have to give our kids options other than college. So we know who they are, and maybe it's unfair for me to just give you hard data of who've signed these memorandum of understanding, but instead maybe give you a secondary list to say, here's the ones that are kind of the bullpen. They're getting ready to step up in the batter's box and take a couple swings. But we have several in western Kansas, central part of the Kansas, and southwest or southeast Kansas that are in the wings getting ready to take this on.
Okay, yeah, because I know like 155 has been great,
Yes,
Assembly 150, but for a lot of school districts, they're too far away from a community college or a tech college to really take a real good advantage of 155. And so, but with this, it's different, but they could be teaching those skills
down around the southwest part, around the Seward County Community College. We have a couple high schools that are actually collaborating to how they could, one has some extra classroom and some have some practical lab, and they're working collaboratively to use NCCR and pool their resources. I mean, it's exciting to hear some of this because people are thinking out of the box. But again, I go back, you're the kind of the ignition that started all this process to get people to thinking of the value of CTE vocational programming.
Representative Dodson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming, Mike.
Absolutely.
My experience was this, is that whether you're trying to start a program or whether you have one in train, that it's a team sport. You know, when you look at the kinds of arrangements that you have to make for instructors or facilities or for equipment, you really have to work with the boards, both the school boards and the boards, maybe if you have a community college or a technical school. And then the Chamber of Commerce is very valuable because those are the guys that populate all of the trades that we have, all of the businesses who need workers. And I know in our case, between MATC and the high school in Kansas State, that we have folks downtown sending out a dozen drills or, you know, whatever equipment you might need if you need welding booths. So this really is a team sport. And, you know, once the word gets out, you've got this whole group of young people who can make a really good living in areas that maybe mom and dad didn't think about in the beginning. So we appreciate what you're doing.
Two things, and you've heard me tell you this probably. If you hadn't, I'm going to say it, and sometimes I embarrass him. Your head of the Board of Regents, Blake Flanders, his son or his brother got in the trades years ago, in the plumbing trades. And a few years later, he started his own plumbing subcontracting firm. He has told me time and time again, he says, do you realize my brother makes more money than I do and my wife combined? And I use that. I said, I'm going to tell people about that. I don't want to embarrass you, but I'm trying to get people to understand because we've done a poor job as an industry to tell that story. The other thing that you mentioned about team effort, and we've had some examples of those team efforts to where MATC was a good example, to where they embraced NCCR because they needed a current curriculum, and that really raised the bar across the board. But we've had multiple examples of that, and you are exactly right. The word is out. And again, I want to make it clear because we sponsor Fort Hays State, Kansas State, and Pittsburgh State's construction science programs. We are a big believer in the four-year institutions. But some of these young women and men, if they get a little taste of success in an entry-level position and they work their way up and maybe even decide to start their own company, or if they don't, they go, you know what, if their employer tells them, if you go over to Kansas State and get some additional education, you can go to the next step. This is going to be a feeder system. I'm convinced. I already have the data from Kansas State and Pittsburgh State in terms of the increased enrollment in their respective departments because of some of the things we're doing. But that team effort is critical in everything that we're doing. And but again, it starts with you, and y'all have set the bar pretty high. And we're not afraid to try to jump over that bar and achieve because we're doing it for self-serving reasons.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. I did have a few though. Private schools. Have you approached private schools at all yet?
Yes.
With your program, you have any success there?
We have had three private schools that are not listed on this, starting with Bishop Carroll in Wichita. We have two others, and I don't have that information, but I'll be more happy to send that to you. What's interesting is Bishop Carroll started this journey about 15 years ago. We're using Bishop Carroll as one of our best practices at these workshops. These workshops are panels of community college leaders, our instructors, and high school instructors to share with the newbies that it can be done. It just takes a little elbow grease. But yes, the private sector is in there. The other thing, Mr. Chairman, I want to go back to the question about team. We were approached this summer by a Chamber of Commerce in Junction City. They asked if we could work, and this does not tap into funds that y'all are providing. This is outside the preview of that, but it's opened the door. The Junction City Chamber of Commerce said, could you come up here and meet with the base? They have some training programs in construction at the base. And as those people are coming off the base, we'd like to capture them to stay in Kansas. So we're developing with the Junction City Chamber of Commerce, Cloud County Community College, an assessment program of where those military folks that are leaving, and then giving them remedial upgrade training. Because we believe if we can get them that upgrade training, there's jobs waiting for them in Kansas, and they won't have a reason to go back where they came from. So that is another example of team effort. I also have reported to you, we're in the correctional facilities. We have some huge correctional facility programs, starting with El Dorado Correctional Facility, Salina, Leavenworth. The governor's office asked us to work with East Lansing, and we're trying to help them in that endeavor with some construction trades programs using NCCR.
All right. So a few years ago when we first decided, so we've heard about this program for quite some time now and its success. And when we decided to take it to the next level a few years ago, part of the expectation that it was that you'd be doing some collaboration with some of the other trade groups, and you kind of touched on that earlier. And I've heard rumblings from some of the other trade associations in the state of Kansas that you're starting to work with them and collaborate with them, and that's exciting because that's the best way. You're now to the level that you're going to explode this program, and you're going to need some help. Can you kind of update the committee on how some of that collaboration is going and where you are on it?
Well, every industry is struggling for people. I mean, y'all hear it every day. That is now coming into play because we wanted first to make sure we had a system in place that was proven and that we could show results. Just like, I'm not going to talk to you about NCCR. You may not ever remember NCCR, but I wanted you to see the curriculum. I don't want you, we're an industry, a touchy-feely industry, and I want you to touch and feel what we've got. Energy, Evergy has approached us. We've had discussions with Textron and Spirit about how, and it's starting with not just how can we work with you to get access to the partnerships that you have in all the high schools across the state. It's how can we post jobs on your HR platform to get the word out. They all have their own landing page. They're pretty static in nature, but they're limited in scope. We're not limited. I mean, this thing is almost global in terms of like I said, the social media. We spend almost $500,000 in social media alone because, again, that's how the kids are wanting to get their information. And there's a lot of postings on different things to stimulate kids' interest, and the parents and the instructors. The instructors are now using Build Up Kansas landing page in their parent-teacher nights to where they can say, here's why your son or daughter is enrolled in my class. Here's the next step. And the parents are taking it back and looking at the pay scales, looking at the career paths, and looking at how all this connects. So we're changing. I go back to Representative Williams' comment about some of our challenges. We've got challenges with the parents. Most parents for 40 years have been saying, if my son or daughter can become a doctor or lawyer, they're a failure. Well, I go back to Blake Flanders' example. I don't know what you pay Blake, but it can't be minimum wage. And if his brother's making more money than his wife and I or him combined, that's pretty good salary or pretty good compensation, I would think. And we are telling that story over and over, not on that level. But the fact is, the parents are paying attention, the kids are paying attention, but the instructors are appreciating that they're getting the kind of support they hadn't gotten up until this point. So there's other industries, both vertical and horizontal on construction, that we believe there's a real opportunity there. We've had some discussions with the home builder side of things. A lot of my contractors, especially in Western Kansas, do both residential and commercial. We're predominantly commercial, industrial, and utility. But the fact being is, if I've got a young man or woman in front of my staff and I have 5 or 6 other industries, they may not like construction, but they may like to be a lineman for Evergy, which, oh, by the way, I was told last year, because we were having some challenges, they've lost a lot of people because of pay to the East and West Coast. And they're trying to repopulate their folks. And so that's what's drawn them in to say, how can we be a partner in this thing? So yes, we're going to continue, but our first course of action was to make sure we had a business plan that built an infrastructure to where we could talk turkey with some of these other industries, because again, it's going to take an all-out effort, because these kids are wanting to go to work and they want some help early on in high school to get those credentials.
Well, I, for one, am excited about hearing how that goes. And if you're having any issues, let us know so we can help with that process, because the more the merrier, like you said earlier. And anything we can do to help all industries is best. Anything else? Seeing none, I think that's it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all are truly visionaries, just like our CTE directors. I said this earlier in the other committee. I've told our CTE vocational directors to add to their resume economic developers, because without them, we don't have economic development. I hope that doesn't equate to them asking for pay raises, but the fact is, y'all are the visionaries, and they are helping on economic development, and we're going to continue to reach higher levels of success, but it can't happen without you. So thank you again for your time today.
Okay, well, you're welcome, sir. And another great meeting in the Commerce Committee. Start planning for next week. We will have. I'm planning 2 joint meetings. One is with the Chairman Auerkamp. With his committee, he's having somebody come in and present, and so we're going to use this room and have a joint committee on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we will meet at lunch, hopefully in this room too. So stay tuned, and that will be to review the unemployment bill that I spoke about earlier. And we are adjourned until